Good morning, good morning. Look who is back. Look what the cat dragged in, what Clovis dragged in. Good morning, everybody in streaming world. You are tuned into the TED Manila Information Show. The TED is back, ladies and gentlemen, from, I think, spelunking and space travel and bird watching. I believe those were among your to-dos.
There were many things.
I'm Manila Chan. And so we got the band back together. Ted's all rested and Ted, they say when you go into space, you do lose weight and bone density. I think that's why you've got some weight loss.
I think that might be the thing. I mean, I give thank you, Elon Musk, for letting me take that ride. I appreciate it.
I thought it was Bezos's penis rocket or whatever it's called.
Oh yeah. That's what it was.
That's the one. That's because he's just taking random people into space, remember?
That's true. Yes, he is.
And you can take selfies up there, sing songs, for the 4 minutes in space. That's definitely what Ted did. So for all the noobs joining the program, this is not a straight-laced show. Now that Ted is back, I'm going to give parental advisory. F-bombs will drop.
Were there no F-bombs in my absence?
I think pretty much none.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty much none.
I feel bad now.
Maybe the S word, maybe a B word, but those are PG-13. There was no rated R words.
Wait, is the F-bomb a P? Has it been degraded to an F?
No, the F-bomb is an R word.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But the B word...
I think the C word is the only truly shocking word left anymore.
Yeah, maybe. The 4-letter C word. So we're not doing that, definitely not.
Or the N word, of course, but for different reasons.
Well, that's a different thing. Of course, we are live every Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern time. So you guys, please be sure to like and follow this show wherever you are consuming this content. We are officially, as of the 1st of May, we are official Rumble content creators. So now you have the opportunity to, if you're watching on Rumble, and if you're not on Rumble right now, go over to Rumble, join that Rumble Premium button down there right below our talking head boxes here. It's red. It says Rumble Premium. If you click that, you become a paid Rumble subscriber, not just to this program, but it just certainly does help this program. If you join through our button, you'll financially help us as well as help the entire Rumble family to keep this going where we can have free speech. And of course, you'll be seeing everybody, whoever's a Rumble creator, you'll be able to see their premium content and have zero commercials on whatever other shows you watch. So it's a lot of
and ours.
No commercial on us. Yeah, I mean, other than the ones we have to read. But I mean, when you're watching the playback, you won't get those random, chopped in the middle of nowhere commercials of, I still like mint snuff. I think it's a cute commercial. I would play it just because, but they're not an official sponsor, so I'm not going to play that. But those are all the benefits. Them's the bends for joining.
Speaking of Rumble, Manila, I'm trying to get into the Rumble feed, and I'm not having any luck this morning.
Well, they, according to producer Robbie, they were having DDoS attacks since last Friday, I think, on and off. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if they've got all the bugs figured out just yet. The world has changed while you were in outer space, Ted.
Well, that can happen. It's like the gorillas took over, and I'm on this beach and I see the Statue of Liberty. Like, what the hell?
It's bonkers. Planes coming down, crashing from Newark.
Right. Not good. Well, that apparently, you just can't fly to Newark anymore.
That's the thing. So there you go.
Well, you can fly to it. You just can't get out of it, apparently.
That is true. Or no, you can't even land at Newark. That was the problem. A lot of jets had to be diverted to JFK and LaGuardia and elsewhere. And in Philly, they had to be diverted this weekend.
Yeah, it's rough. If you know the New York area, it's rough when people are like, oh, instead of landing in Newark, I'm going to land at LaGuardia. Okay, so that's LaGuardia, depending on the time of day, can be 3 or 4 hours away from Newark. It's really on the wrong side of New York City. It's far.
Yeah. So this is a big deal. I don't know why LaGuardia Newark is having a meltdown. Antiquated systems, or we might look into that maybe for a premium show, a premium episode. That'd be an interesting dive into why America's not only infrastructure, because that's too broad of a saying. It's America's infrastructure is in the can, but specifically, why do our airports suck? I mean, Ted, you go to any airport in the Middle East like Donald Trump is doing right now, their airports are like Ritz-Carlton hotels. Like literally.
It's true. It's really sad. I mean, and you can go to a third world airport like in Central Asia, Tashkent, Ashgabat.
Really?
Much better than American airports. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah, it's pathetic. I mean, I will give them points. They did fix LaGuardia. LaGuardia is pretty much modernized. It's much better than it used to be. But it's not. It's not about
the internet, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Well, do you remember Joe Biden had said it's like flying into a third world country? He was right about that.
Just it's unreal what's happening in the Northeast, and reality star turned transportation secretary Sean Duffy says he's looking into it, and they try to make a big hubbub about him changing his wife's flight plans because she was due to come into Newark, and they were like, oh, he's just using his powers or whatever as the transpo secretary. It's like, no, dude, you just go on your Priceline app on your phone and just change flights.
Ask William Shatner to take care of it for you.
Yeah, I don't think Sean Duffy was like using his special powers as transpo secretary to change his wife's planes or travel itinerary. No hubbub about that, but they tried to make a thing of it. But that part was dumb. Anyway, we're glad to have you back, Ted.
It's good to be back.
A lot of stuff to talk about.
And thank you, Robbie, for sitting in for me. I appreciate it.
Totally. And it was a lot of fun. Robbie and I locked horns a couple of times on topics that I'm sure you can guess, Ted.
Immigration.
Some immigration.
The gays.
The gays. So, just the usual.
Religion, perhaps?
Little bit. Just the usual. The usual. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, that's okay. But I don't know if you've kept up with the news while you were gone. I don't know if you get news when you're in outer space or scuba diving or spelunking.
I'm all caught up.
Okay, you're all caught up. Okay, good to know. So if you aren't all caught up, Mr., Mrs., or they viewer, we'll get you caught up right now with headline news. So let's hop to it. Back to the program.
Jaws it. Donald Trump is on his first major foreign trip of this administration, a whirlwind visit of Gulf state countries focused on shoring up investments. In Riyadh, capital of Saudi Arabia, the president pledged to lift all sanctions against Syria, saying it's time for Syria to move forward with a chance at greatness. The U.S. and Saudi Arabia have announced a $142 billion arms deal, as well as other investments that the country's crown prince said could eventually be worth $1 trillion. Trump is trying to get foreign investors to the U.S. to boost our economy, a key focus of his administration and one that's become increasingly necessary due to instability in the financial markets. Trump is also sucking up to Mohammed bin Salman and asking if he can borrow his bone saw from time to time. I like him too much, Trump said of Saudi Arabia's crown prince. That's why we give so much. Trump said it was his dream to have Saudi Arabia join the Abraham Accords. That's a deal that he brokered in his first term that improved relationships between Israel and some of the Gulf states.
Correction.
No?
That Jared Kushner brokered.
Oh, right. That's true. But MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, made clear that there's not going to be anything that's going to happen there until the war in Gaza is over and there's a clear path to Palestinian statehood. If he were to violate that, then obviously, the the Saudi street, as they say, would blow up. So the Saudi people will not tolerate any kind of rapprochement beyond what's already happened. I mean, we all know Israel and Saudi Arabia, they talk, they chat, but it has to be on the DL because, the locals don't like it. Meanwhile, Trump's plan to use a $400 million luxury jet from Qatar as an interim Air Force One would cause a lot of problems. It'll produce massive security risks, since the administration would probably have to forego needed modifications to make it secure, according to defense officials. Overhauling the former Qatari royal family's Boeing 747-8 to meet the standards required of Air Force One would take years and cost hundreds of millions. But Trump wants the jet by the end of 2025, according to the New York Times. Defense officials say that that's not going to happen. I read that they would have to take the whole thing completely apart, bolt by bolt, and put it back together again, which is kind of like defeats the purpose of getting a free plane in the first place. Treating the aircraft as a safe for the commander-in-chief with just a few nips and tucks is absurd, another senior defense official said. In addition to carrying the president around, president jets are part of the nuclear command and control structure, so the president can fight a nuclear war. I don't know how aware people are of this anymore, but in the event of World War III, Trump's supposed to fly up there, and then they refuel it over and over and over, so it can fly for days or maybe even weeks at a time. Of course, there's no talk about where do the fuel jets come from as the Earth is burning up. But anyway, Trump is unlikely to wait for the years of work that it would take. Officials say the administration will do what it can, but the plane will probably not be fully classified or secure, and it probably won't have everything that you need in a presidential jet, and probably there won't be enough time to thoroughly even sweep it for bugs or other spy devices, even though maybe I'm naive. I don't think the Qataris would actually do that, but you never know. Beyond security concerns, the legality is up for debate. Democrats and former officials and some Republicans have said that this would violate the emoluments clause of the United States Constitution, which prevents you from getting gifts to federal officials, because Trump plans to keep the plane after he leaves, right? So it's so funny, right? Because it's like, so I guess President Vance or President Newsom or whoever, President Clovis, they get stuck with the old 40-year-old model after Trump leaves. That doesn't seem right. This is an American president flying around in a Qatari bribe that he received. It's flat out wrong for the president to accept this anyway, one former official said. Manila, I had a thought about this that I haven't heard anybody talk about. And this is, I don't know if this fits in as maybe a MAGA argument, but I'm like, doesn't it make us look bad that we're saying we can't afford to make our own presidential plane? I mean, you don't see President Macron saying like, hey, Senegal, do us a solid and gift us a plane. It's like, they're like, we're fucking France. We can build a plane, for our president.
Yeah.
I mean, we're the United States of fucking America. I think we can afford to build, if Trump says the plane is old, and I think 40 years old is pretty old.
That's a ghetto old Air Force One.
Okay, fair enough. Build a new one. And I know there's been delays from Boeing because of the security stuff.
Well,
but this is things like,
do we want Boeing to keep being the jet maker?
It's true. Check those door plugs. Check those door plugs. Don't stand too close.
Maybe
to the
the
door.
old one. Maybe the old one is safer to have for that reason alone.
That is a thought. I mean, whenever I've been on a very old plane, like in the former Soviet Union, I've flown on planes from the 1950s, like old Tupolev 154s, and you can look at it like, wow, that's an old plane. It could fly out, drop out of the sky anytime. Or you could look at it like, that's an old plane. It's been flying for years. It'll probably be fine, Well,
it's like one of those old Chevy trucks, right? Like the old school ones that are still made of steel.
The ones that are a little bulbous.
Like from the 60s. Mm-hmm. Yeah, from the 60s and 70s.
They're like tanks.
Yeah, you can fix them. Like they run on real oil, no synthetics. All the
no
the
computers
spark plugs
under
are
the
basic.
hood.
Right. They'll run forever. Those are the things that you see still running in Cuba, right? Because that's when all the embargoes happened. I mean, the Cubans are repairing those old Chevys, these Impalas and trucks and whatever, for this last 65 years with like bubble gum and coconut water, and they're still like, it's still running, right? So maybe, maybe the old, if I were concerned about the safety parts, I'd be like, POTUS, maybe you stick with this old Boeing jet. And besides, the Qatari jet, like, I know it's new, it's flashy, it's got all the bells and whistles and like baleen whale skin leather or whatever. But it might be the newer Boeing models, maybe not so great. It's the new Boeing jumbo jet. Forget the bells and whistles. You want the doors to stay on. And besides that, the other security concern, which is the thing I was harping on, was for sure that thing would be bugged. Like the tachometers, all that stuff, you'd have to tear it apart, like root to tail, like all the way, like strip that whole thing down, every nut and bolt, because there could be some sort of spy device. There's
absolutely. You'd have to assume that. I mean, like I said, I don't think they'd actually do that, but because they would assume that we would check, right? So we have to check. But if the whole thing is, if it's a rush job, anyway, it also, look, Trump is all about the grift. He's got the Bitcoin grift, the Melania coin grift. He's got this grift. He's got so many grifts going on. He can't keep track of all his grifts. But this grift, I think, goes to something really core about sovereignty. And it makes the country look bad and poor. And I just don't, I can't imagine how MAGA people can get behind this. It makes us look like shit as a country.
If it does look kind of embarrassing, like we're too ghetto to buy our own stuff.
That's what I'm saying.
We have to go like blink and flirt and be like, hey, Qatar, hey.
And
what's up, big boy?
And it's also like nobody believes that now, like if the Emir of Qatar calls up Trump, that he's not going to get his calls returned promptly, like when he needs a solid. I mean, it's just, there's going to be a quid pro quo. And if there is, the thing about conflict of interest is that there's no difference between the appearance of a conflict of interest and a conflict of interest. They're the same, because if everybody thinks you're on the take or will be on the take or might be on the take, then you might as well be on the take, right?
I just want to point out, Ted, that if he does the math of, let's say, giving a contract to Boeing, just like they do with Cadillac, right, to build the Beast, right? It costs tens of millions of dollars to build the Beast.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
and it's a car.
New contract.
It's a car.
It's a car, but it's like nuclear blast safe. It's like an armored tank, like it's Cadillac, right? Great. American manufacturer. Wonderful. Made in America. Wonderful. Okay. Boeing, you want it to be made in America.
If you have to be assassinated in a car, that's the car to be assassinated in.
Caddy. Old school American glory. Caddy. But the Boeing, with this jet, with the way, I get that it's an expensive thing to make, but if he did the math on how much money we are giving chief grifter Volodymyr Zelensky,
oh, well,
you could have bought 2, 3, 5 Air Force Ones. Because remember, you have to make duplicates. You have to have.
Yeah, I was going to say there have to be 2 or at least 2, right? In case one's out of service or whatever.
Yeah. Because they fly in as a duo, right? Because you don't know which jet is the real POTUS jet, which one he's actually on. So they fly in tandem. Mm-hmm. Like sometimes.
What does Air Force 2 look like? Is that just any random plane, or?
It's it has markings on it, but it's not like as glorious as Air Force 1. But I think it has markings, and it's just one of the. I don't know if it belongs to State Department. I mean, it's a government-owned jet.
It's a 757. I'm looking it up now.
It's a big jet, and it's outfitted with office spaces and stuff. But Trump doing this, if he wants to do the math, do the math. Stop funding stupid things, stupid grifts like in Ukraine, and you can have 2, 3, 4, 5 brand new Air Force Ones, and maybe one of them throw a bone to old JD Vance.
I don't think
give him a nice Air Force 2.
I don't think this deal is going to happen. There's too many logistics. I mean, what do you think? I know Trump really wants it, but there are so many logistical concerns that he doesn't think about. Like, he wants the military parade, right? Which
I know, on his birthday.
I don't mind him having a military parade. I mean, is it fascist? Yes, but who cares? It's just style, right? And
Well, only 'cause it's
and
on
in a
his
way,
birthday.
I want to see all our missiles and stuff that we pay for. Why not? But the thing is, he never thinks about it. Military equipment is super heavy, and those tank treads tear up streets that are not made for
tear
those.
up DC.
It'll tear up the streets. It'll fuck them up 6 ways till Sunday. That parade's going to cost millions of dollars in street repairs. Not worth it, right? It's that kind of thing.
Doge needs to step in and be like, POTUS, no to Qatari jets, because
No
it's going to
Qatari
cost
jet.
a gabillion dollars to refurb and scope it out.
Isn't there already?
And no military
Boeing's
parade.
working on the new one anyway, right? It's going to be ready in a couple of years. I mean, Trump's just upset that it'll be too late for him.
It'll be the end of his term. So
that's what this is really.
On that.
He hates the old.
He wants the new one now.
Before we move on, I want to get your thoughts about your favorite head chopping Arab leader. He's Trump is sucking up to him. Or did we talk about that yet? Do we get to that yet? No, we have to talk about it.
Oh, we haven't. We haven't gotten
so
there.
Trump is so basically Trump's hanging out with the new president of Syria post-revolution after the overthrow of Bashir al-Assad. And I don't know, I think you probably share my feeling about this. I was very uncomfortable watching this because, I mean, knowing this guy's history as a former member of ISIS,
Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda in Syria.
My apologies.
Ted, get your terrorists straight.
I am so sorry. Yeah, program. You can't tell your terrorists without a program. Get a program.
Jeez.
So, I mean, it's very, the guy's a member of Al-Qaeda, sworn allegiance to basically Osama bin Laden. And then, like, here he is hanging out with the president of the United States. And,
all sanctions, right?
And I can't, and MBS, I can't, like, okay, so for MBS, maybe it's because I'm a journalist, but, let's not forget what he did. We know that he ordered a Washington Post journalist, columnist, Saudi dissident, U.S. green card holder, almost a U.S. citizen, right? To the consulate, to the Saudi consulate in Turkey, tortured him to death, chopped him up into little pieces, dissolved him in acid while his fiancée was waiting outside, and dumped the acid into the sewage system in Istanbul, infuriating the Turks to no end. And the Turks had the place bugged, and they have all the audio that's now been released, and you can listen to on the internet. It's not pretty.
Oh God!
And like the thing is, like, it's this guy who ordered it. Like, it's the official position of the CIA and the U.S. Intelligence Committee that this was a direct order that came from this guy. It's not like Saudi Arabia's had a revolution. It's not like he's been put on trial and he's now serving time in prison for what he did. It's like nothing's happened. He got away with it totally. In my view, he should be a global pariah and no one should have anything to do with him. I mean, I don't know. I can't move past it. Am I just uptight? Or is it time to move on? Hey, that was whatever, 7 years ago. Who gives a shit? Or, you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy.
No,
and now it's like, I don't trust the Syrian guy either.
Well, yeah. So Al-Jalani, Al-Shara was his street name.
Mm-hmm. His nom de guerre.
That's right. When he was a guerrilla fighter, as they want to rename him now, they don't want to call him a former terrorist because, Ted, he left Al-Qaeda allegedly in 2016. Mm-hmm. Al-Shara did. And then he disappeared. He maybe went to a Buddhist monastery or something.
Probably.
Didn't talk for 5 years or something, and then found his inner peace, comes back to lead a revolution in Syria, right? A slow burn revolution in Syria. That
completely organic revolution.
Completely organic,
not backed by any outside powers whatsoever.
Not at all in touch with the CIA, even though the CIA and the U.S. put a $10 million bounty on his head that they got rid of this December. when he, and, they officially anointed al-Jilani, because he went from al-Shara to al-Jilani. He is now in a suit, as you can see, Ted. He's right there shaking Trump's hand.
Mm-hmm.
He's all cleaned up.
Mm-hmm.
His beard got combed and everything. Like,
yeah, he wouldn't be out of place in Bushwick.
No, he'd be like he's
your bartender. Yeah,
he looks like a bartender, totally. Like I can go anywhere in Brooklyn.
Or a barber.
Anywhere in Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
Guy looks just, like some dude you'd find like making me a craft drink in Brooklyn.
However, what is with the U.S.? The U.S. will not make friends with any socialists, like Assad or Saddam Hussein. Well, we were friends with them, but we always, or Gaddafi, but we always throw the socialists and the leftists who like women and minorities under the bus. And then we cozy up to these insane head chopping militant jihadis like the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, who became Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. Right. And now we're doing it again. I mean, this really seems like a total replay of Afghanistan in the 80s.
Totally. Ted, you would think more families of like the 9/11 families, right? That they should be pissed about this. This guy is like a regional Al-Qaeda boss from the Syrian Al-Qaeda. He's Syrian Al-Qaeda.
Yeah, he's not just a fighter either.
Right.
He was the Mac Daddy
of the Syria facet of Al-Qaeda.
Yeah.
He's not some low-ranking dude. He was high up there. He was like a lieutenant. The 9/11 families should be outraged that not only does the U.S., and I'm not putting this squarely just on Donald Trump, but the U.S. constantly cozying up to Saudi Arabia, because remember
parties.
all the terrorists were taking pilot lessons here in the U.S. They're all Saudi nationals, and then this guy actually is an Al-Qaeda guy, an Al-Qaeda boss that's now reformed in a suit. So 9/11 families should be outraged.
Well, what about MBS? I mean, the Saudis were 9/11. Okay,
no, that's what I was saying. Like all the
hijackers were Saudis. The money came from Saudi Arabia. It's the Saudis. The Pakistanis, by comparison, only had tangential involvement. And after that, then who do we attack? The two countries who have nothing to do with it.
Yeah, because we need those wars, and we can go into that's a whole different conversation with Paul Wolfowitz and the orchestration of those forever wars. But here they are at this. I can't ever tell, Ted, because having lived in Dubai, I'll tell you, this is that state dinner that MBS hosted for Donald Trump. I can't tell. It's indistinguishable at this point if those buildings were original old Middle Eastern buildings or replicas, because when you go to Dubai, I mean, I haven't been in a long time, obviously, but they make their shopping malls deliberately, some of the malls look, they're called souks, right? Like your smaller shopping malls.
S-O-U-K, yeah.
Yeah, the souks are replicas of old, hundreds of years old traditional souks. So I don't know if we're looking at a place that's historical and they refurbed to make modern on the inside. I think it's probably a dupe.
I think it's a duplicate. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a dupe. But this is them, Elon Musk, all the American money makers are there. Elon Musk and his brother Kimball, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. Just look at the American. There's Rubio talking to Elon, including the guy that owns the LA Times. Why is he there?
Oh, Dr. Pat-Soon Xiong. Well, because he's a sleazebag. You'll find out someday.
But what business does he have in Saudi Arabia?
I don't know. Well, he's a biotech person. So, basically, is it too much of a stretch to say that they tend to be evil? Not really. And he, this is a guy who he basically did a capture and kill scheme on breast cancer drugs, something that you might care about. And basically, he purchased what his scheme was that he would develop an overpriced, ineffectual breast cancer treatment drug, and then he would buy the cheap, established, more effective competition, and then have them not file their FDA renewal approvals so that it would be taken off the market, so that then he could gouge for the shitty drug that, because it's not effectual, they would use more of before they died. I mean, he has killed
so allowing women
thousands
to die.
of American women. Thousands of American women
just
have died of breast cancer because of Dr. Pat. He's an absolute one of the biggest serial killers in U.S. history. But he's the owner, and he's got this big congenial, big shit-eating smile. By the way, he's like Elon Musk. He's also from South Africa. Dr.
Is
Pat.
he really?
Yeah. He's whatever the Asian version of an Afrikaner is. So he's an Asiacaner. And
I didn't know that. I thought he had a peculiar accent that I couldn't quite.
He's got this very friendly, open face. He looks like the nicest man in the world. You know, like, and then you find out, no, he's like the bunny rabbit in Monty Python and the Holy Grail. He's like, don't believe your eyes. You know?
Well, he's there. He's, if he's doing a grift, he's there in Saudi Arabia. The Saudis are building, as you can see, these like planned cities, and they're going to have like Dubai has one. It's called Healthcare City, where like you go there to focus on health.
In Saudi Arabia, or is that somewhere else where they're going to do that strip city, the big long? Do you know what I'm talking about? I'll have to ask Grok about it. But there's a plan to do a city that is like a mile wide and hundreds of miles long.
What? That's a terrible idea.
It's supposed to be ecologically good.
Yeah, but if it's hundreds of miles long and only a mile wide, then you'd be traveling to one end to, I don't know, get to your grocery store 20 miles down the strip when it could have just been back there.
It does sound a little bit. It's in Saudi Arabia. It's called The Line, part of Saudi Arabia's NEOM project in Tabuk province in northwest Saudi. And it's meant to be 200 meters wide, 500 meters tall, 30, and it's going to be really, really, really long, going from stretching from the Red Sea across deserts, valleys, and mountains. It's meant to house up to 9 million people.
What?
Yeah. A 2.4 kilometer segment is supposed to be completed by 2030. And basically a high-speed train will connect the city end to end in 20 minutes. So it's supposed to be like zero carbon emissions, like everything's green, renewable, solar, wind,
I'll have
hydrogen.
to look into that. All right, we'll have to look into that. All right.
Part of it will be it'll be the power from bone saws. They're going to harness that and like get the static electricity from scraping the bones off journalists.
Yes. That's always indefinite amount of power there. There's a lot of journalists mad at.
A lot of journalists got to go.
A lot of journalists. So then here's this. So let's move on to this one, Ted. I'm just going to read a quick little blurb, and then we got to listen here to why Trump is sending this freaking dude to Turkey tomorrow. So, Trump has flirted with the idea since he's kind of in the region, right? He's kind of in the Middle East, and Turkey is kind of sort of in between Europe and Asia and the Middle East. So he's kind of there. Flirted with the idea, but for sure he's sending this guy. That's Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, which I think is a terrible idea of sending this clown. So Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he'll be in Turkey this week for peace talks with Russia. The talks scheduled for tomorrow in Istanbul will be the first direct negotiations, breaking Zelensky's own law of talking to the Russians.
This was Putin's idea, right, originally, to meet in Istanbul?
He pitched it. So, this is the first time that, since 2022, that any Ukrainian official is talking to any Russian official. Now, Putin did propose that negotiation on Sunday in response to the European Coalition of the Willing, terrible name, to pressure for a 30-day
willing
ceasefire.
To do what? Yeah. Anyway,
I know.
Can you just say coalition? The Ukrainian coalition. Good enough. Ukraine and its allies.
Coalition of the Willing.
Well, that's a George W. Bush term. Yeah,
that's terrible. So Putin, though, has punted on whether or not he was actually going to be there himself. What we know right now is presumably, so far, Sergei Lavrov is going to be there. So obviously,
so it's high level already.
It's very high level. But the European countries, they're threatening to levy more sanctions on the Russians, and
they're terrified that a horrific peace could break out that could destroy their business for dozens of years.
So there's a couple of things here that we should hear from Keith Kellogg, which I think are kind of ridiculous.
Right now, the Ukrainians are willing to do a freeze in place, what I call a ceasefire in place. And then we'll for a period of time, they're willing to set up a militarized zone. What they basically said is, we'll back up 15 kilometers, you back up 15 kilometers to the Russians. So, that's this 30-kilometer, 18-mile zone that you can actually observe. And you can actually say, okay, are there any intrusions? And you've got what's called the Coalition of the Willing. That's the British, the French, the Germans, plus right now at least 12 other countries are willing to put forces in an air cap west of the Dnieper River, not east. That's going to be a ceasefire force to actually slow this thing down. And right now, the Ukrainian.
So that's not going to happen. That's you have this guy that's pushing for that to show up.
In this situation, you don't do a militarized zone. You do a demilitarized zone. That's how it works. That's why it's called a DMZ. That's what they did between North and South Vietnam, between North and South Korea, all over the world, between Israel and Lebanon. I mean, that's how this works.
So I think we don't. Well, supposedly the U.S. is sending Steve Witkoff, who has been, I think, very successful.
He's good.
He's the only non-entrenched American personnel that Trump has right now that's proven to actually be worth his salt. But he's going with this guy, with Keith Kellogg, who has been a Fox News pundit up until he, got
and not a very good Trump. One. I watch a lot of Fox. He's not one of their brighter lights.
And they're taking this guy, Ted. So what does that actually say to you, that the Russians, if Putin doesn't show up himself, the next best thing is to have Lavrov, who is probably the most serious and respected diplomat around the world, right? If you're not going to send his president,
and who does speak for Putin,
who knows his job and knows the Kremlin and knows the laws and knows everything inside out.
By the way, question: you know what I'm going to ask you? Zelensky drafted and signed a law that makes it illegal for him or any Ukrainian citizen to negotiate with Russia.
Yeah, he's breaking.
So what's going on? I mean,
But I mean, doesn't that speak volumes? That how serious is Trump about wanting to broker peace? If he's sending this moron, Steve Witkoff, he gets a pass. I've
Is Witkoff busy? Is he somewhere? Is he hanging out with the Saudis?
He's there with him in the Saudis.
Well, that's what's going on. Okay, so listen,
going.
Don't read much into it. What this is about is, Trump has a very short attention span. He's very ADHD, right?
Like new shiny thing over here.
Very new shiny thing.
Qatari jet.
A month ago, 2 months ago, Ukraine was on top of his list of things to take care of. Now that it's taking a little while, he's like, shit. He's like, okay, whatever. So he's like, I'll take my ace guy to Saudi, because he's like, he's really worried right now. As much as he wants that Nobel Peace Prize for solving the Russo-Ukrainian war, he also thinks he can get it by solving the Middle East conflict, and he's worried about Israel expanding into the West Bank and bombing Gaza even more. So he's over there, dealing with the Saudis in a way to sort of suck up to the Israelis and try to get them to chillax on the Middle East. So I think this is one of those things. If I were him, I would have saved Witkoff. I think only Witkoff is the right guy to send to the Russia-Ukrainian thing. He's the only. This guy's too stupid. He can't do it. But he's just not qualified. And so, all right. So according to, all right. So yeah. Anyway, it just seems like.
Bad move.
So okay.
I don't think it shows that we're serious.
Producer Robbie says we have some breaking news. Well, it's relevant. Qatar has just signed a $200 billion deal to buy Boeing jets, something that they just announced. Now, are these the ones that don't depressurize, or are these the other ones?
This is okay. But that's funny because if they want to give us their one jet, then they'll just buy more jets.
Yeah.
Now these are budget jets. Okay, so they're just buying it as like a gesture of like, okay, we'll buy your Boeing jets, guys.
Yeah, this is like for regional travel. American
made, wonderful.
When you're going over to Dubai or whatever.
Great. Short jaunts, not I wouldn't go if you have to go above 30,000 feet, I would say not the Boeing.
No, if you have to go over 3,000 feet, maybe not the Boeing.
Yeah, so I don't know.
It's like next time take the train is the best.
Yeah.
is the best.
How about just wait till the Saudis build those bullet trains across the Middle East?
Yeah. All right, so I don't think so. Anyway, I'm hoping that Witkoff. It looks like Witkoff's going to Istanbul, though, right? So
yeah, he's taking this guy. Witkoff is he's leaving the Middle East and going to Turkey there, with this idiot.
It's all right. Kellogg could go and get coffee. Like the big boys will take care of things. I think it would be cool and very awesome if Putin were to show up, but I don't think he's gonna, and I can see why he won't.
Well, Zelensky was
because Zelensky hasn't been talking like a serious man.
Zelensky's been like beating his chest. He's like, well,
for that
Vladimir, I am going to Turkey. Are you going to Turkey? I am going. If
been acting like an ass lately, I think Putin might have gone, but
because he's kind of bloviating on social media.
Yeah, that's not cool. I mean, I think Putin doesn't like it. It's like if it had been a more humble, straightforward, like we're two fraternal peoples. We've always had a close relationship in the past. We can solve this. Yeah. Let's work it down. I think that
the fact that he's bloviating about it is what is a turnoff to Putin.
You can't legitimize that.
Zelensky is going to go over there and make it about him.
Yeah. That's why Lavrov. I mean, Lavrov's more than Zelensky deserves.
More than Zelensky can handle, for sure.
All
right, go Sergey.
All right, let's keep going here. Jake Tapper has a new book out. Comes out next week on the 22nd about Joe Biden. It's called Original Sin: President Biden's Decline, its cover-up, which I had absolutely nothing to do with, and his disastrous choice to run again. Conservative critics have taken aim at Tapper since the announcement. They say he was part of the cover-up and trying to rewrite history with his book. Full disclosure, I know and like Jake Tapper, and I think he likes me, but I do think that conservatives definitely have a point here. Among the more shocking details to emerge from the book, let's go through some of these incidents, right? So at a Los Angeles fundraiser, according to the book, Biden didn't recognize George Clooney, even though he'd known him for many, many years. Aides had to prompt him during the interaction, underscoring his cognitive lapses in familiar settings. So it's kind of like, any American recognizes George Clooney, even if they've never met him. It's like, oh, that guy who was robbing my car, that's George Clooney. I know him. I've seen that guy before. He's very distinctive looking.
Oh, so one-time sexiest man alive, George Clooney.
Right. Then at the same fundraiser, Biden struggled to speak coherently, freezing up. Obama intervened multiple times, finishing Biden's sentences to try to keep things going, showing that Biden just had a really hard time talking. After all of this happened, by the way, is when Clooney wrote that op-ed in the New York Times. At an event commemorating the anniversary of D-Day back in June of last year, Biden was disoriented, couldn't follow the proceedings. Remember, at this event and many others, he like kind of wandered off, and we're like, where did he go?
Georgia Maloney had to chase after him, like his care nurse.
He repeatedly mixed up the names of world leaders and historical events in public remarks, like he called Kamala Harris Donald Trump. Well, I mean, in fairness, they do look exactly the same during a 2024 press conference. Don't forget also the time that he called out to recognize a dead woman whose funeral he had attended. Okay. Now, I could be forgiven for, I didn't know that guy died or that lady died in a tragic car
at
accident.
her funeral.
But when you've been to the funeral and you've spoken at the funeral, and even if you're the president of the United States and you do many, many things, there's a tendency to remember speaking at a funeral as someone who has only done so a few times. But I think generally, and then finally at the debate, of course, obviously, after the debate, Biden couldn't really remember the debate. Aides said that he was dazed after the debate, and basically just and also after 2023, aides wouldn't let him have any unscripted interactions. They didn't schedule any press conferences or interviews. Well, we know that. And he was always confused without teleprompters. Don't forget even in private fundraisers for rich donors in people's houses, they set up a teleprompter for him to use, like in the living room. Like this is supposed to be a casual, glad handing, like Manila Chan, love you. You're so great. How's it going? I mean, this is the opposite of Bill Clinton, who I met a few times, who's like, it's actually kind of, it's uncanny. He had met me 8 years earlier, and he's like, Ted Rall, how's the wife? How are the cartoons? He knew my face.
This about him.
I've
heard this about him. But some people have that quality, about them, that ability. And I've heard, I mean, forget Bill Clinton as the president, Bill Clinton as the man. I've heard that he is super, super charming and just.
He is.
If anyone knows how to work a room, it's Bill Clinton.
It's those twinkly blue eyes, and he makes you feel
he's the opposite of his wife.
100% attention to you.
Yes. And
no one's ever said to Bill Clinton, you don't feel present. No.
Right.
But no way.
He couldn't bestow that power on his wife, which is why she's, has ran like multiple times. But then this guy, look, it was demonstrable before he ran in 2020 that
100%
he wasn't all there. And mainstream media would shit on me and all of us at Sputnik, at RT, all of us, because we were questioning it.
And all of our Democratic friends and journalists.
They turned on us.
They were like, what are you, a gerontologist? Are you an expert? Are you a doctor?
But Jake Tapper is one of them, Ted.
I used to be
he was one of them.
And I would say,
your buddy Tapper over here is a hypocrite, because now he's trying to rewrite history to be like, I called it out many years ago. And
no, I mean, it's a fair criticism. He's grifting on both sides, right?
Yes.
Look, I think the truth is I think the truth is he was one of those journalists who he knew it was wrong. He knew whether he was told explicitly or he just knew, he intuited that it was not going to be allowed by CNN policy aligned with the Democratic Party to talk about this. Therefore, he knew to keep his job to shut up. Now, I'm not saying that this is right at all. It's not right. A journalist should be willing to lose their job in interest of the truth. But the point is, I think that's what happened here. And I think he's not alone. I mean, I will say he gets a little bit of redemption in that at least he co-wrote the book about this. So there's been.
I don't think there's redemption unless
but also
there's no mea culpa in there.
He interviewed 200 Democratic officials, all of whom went on the record or off the record, but on the record, at least anonymously, to talk about, what he, to verify everything that he found. And none of them they're all willing to talk now that it's too fucking late.
Well, yeah, but I would only accept this book as redemption. I would only accept this book as remotely a tiny bit of redemption. If there were a mea culpa in there, if he had put in there that, like, yes, I was part of that problem. I wanted to, even if he was bullshitting out of his ass, talking out of his ass to say, I wanted to believe in blah, 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 because the alternative, Donald Trump, is worse, or whatever. Make something up. At least put some kind of mea culpa in there to say that I was part of the problem. I buried his tracks to make sure I held water for this old man, but there was none of that. So to me, Tapper doesn't get a pass on that. I've met him a couple of times at events, here in DC, and he seemed perfectly nice.
I'm not suggesting that he deserves a pass. I'm glad that the book exists, and I'm looking forward to reading it. But look, honestly, one of the things I've been reading in the comment sections at the Washington Post and the New York Times, both who obviously are like Democratic readers primarily, is like, well, he was a better president than Trump or whatever. I'd rather have him than Trump. And they're really missing the point, right? Like, the point is, it's like, by the way, if Democrats had been honest about this and gotten rid of him, right now they'd be well situated to say, there's stuff that seems to be wrong with Donald Trump. And there is. And they would be, and, Trump seems a little bit past his expiration date as well. And they'd be in a good position to go after him. Now they have no leg to stand on.
No, here's the crazy thing about it, right, is you and Manila are both journalists. Y'all pointed this out. Y'all are both called propagandists, called tools of the Putin. People on my side of the aisle, we're literally called garbage and deplorables. And I think that, to your point, Ted, what you're just kind of talking about is, if Trump is really the existential threat to democracy, to freedom, to the republic itself,
to the Constitution,
then why would you run a man with dementia and then have the mainstream media prop that man up,
right,
instead of running the most qualified candidate for it? Because if you're running Hitler, if your opponent is literally Hitler Jr.,
as they said,
then
Trump is literally Hitler, but I think they don't understand what literally means. So.
No, so that's just all I had to say. It's just complete BS.
No, it's like they obviously either didn't believe their own narrative, or they believed it and they just didn't care enough to do anything about it. Right. Right. Those are the only two.
The Republic isn't worth saving.
Yeah, who cares? Fuck the Republic. And the corollary to what Robbie just said is is then when that blows up, they're like, oh, we'll just put in Kamala Harris, who's also a terrible candidate. You're running against Hitler. You should go. We sent our best generals to fight Hitler. These were great generals. They weren't shitty generals. Like, the Democratic Party should have sent in their best and their brightest, and if they didn't have a best and brightest, they should have gone out and found a best and brightest in a country with 330 million people.
Yeah.
It just shows how unserious it is. I think what it is, it just shows that there is the institutions are broken down. We have a uniparty, and who the president is nowadays honestly doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference.
And Robbie, before we switch gears to our last topic, do we have a word from a sponsor?
We do not today.
Okay. Just double checking. All right.
No.
Thanks for
that,
Robbie.
Go away now.
All right. And moving on, because I have a hard out coming up. United Healthcare Group CEO Andrew Whitty abruptly stepped down from the health insurance and care conglomerate yesterday, citing personal reasons like not wanting to be shot on the street, capping the end of a tumultuous 4-year tenure that included, of course, the killing of his predecessor. United Health named its board chair and former chief executive Stephen Hemsley, as the company's new leader. Hemsley, who was United CEO between 2006 and 2017, and is one of the most powerful people at the widely beloved company, will remain the company's chairman, and probably one of those people whose photo and name are not on the company website anymore.
Yeah. So Ted, we won't go long on this because this is just a bit of news. I don't have much opinion about this without getting into the whole the murder thing and the Luigi issue in and of itself.
No.
But
That was a victimless crime.
well, so the whole reason this guy, the guy that's talking here, Mr. Whitty, the reason that he's gone is because so when he took over as the CEO of the company, right? Not a division head, which is the C level that was murdered. This guy, Mr. Whitty, stepped away because I guess once he got into that seat, he was trying to make some changes about how the company miscalculated, Medicare costs, drug costs. And basically, long story short is it seems like he kind of discovered how fucked up the math was. And because he pointed it out, the board was really pissed off at him. And so they pushed him to resign. So now he steps down, and guess who becomes the new CEO? The president of the board becomes the CEO of the entire company because, Ted, they're just gonna redo the math and figure out, their share of what they'll cover under Medicare. And then the government can figure out however much it wants to negotiate with United, and then leave that to the old and the poor people that need Medicare to figure out the difference, the gap.
Agreed.
That's how it works.
Very quickly here, we have a quick spot. We're going to go ahead and read that. If you're looking for a great place online for news, discussion, and entertainment, check out Truth Social, Donald Trump's social media website. You'll get breaking news stories and commentary from top media figures. If you want to see Trump's legendary Truth Social posts, then get on Truth Social today. Join a growing community of patriots on a free speech platform designed to avoid censorship and cancellation by big tech. Make your voice heard. Join the movement. Join Truth Social. All right. Anyway, let's just say that United Healthcare is a disgusting company. They're the biggest health insurance company in the United States by far. And there's no sign to me that besides the few little nips and tucks that you described, that they really ever intend to alter their profit model, which is basically to, deny, deflect, delay. And that's their approach.
Yeah, I don't think any of that's going to change. And I think it might actually get worse now that Stephen Hemsley is stepping in, because he was the president of the board. He was the board chairman. Yeah,
so it's more of the same.
It's going to be worse than the same. He wasn't a company executive like the guy that stepped in. This guy, Hemsley, is even worse because he's only in it for shareholders. Only purely. It's not like he was a career guy that moved up, right? That moved up the chain. This guy was purely a member of the board, and the whole reason a board exists is there for the benefit of shareholders only, not the end user, not the poor people that use Medicare. So I feel like United is going to get worse, and the Luigi thing, I mean, I just feel like that's not going to be an isolated incident.
Well, that I can't weigh in on. All right, let's move on here. Eric and Lyle Menendez were resentenced yesterday to 50 years to life in prison, more than 3 decades after the brothers were convicted of murdering their parents, Jose and Kitty, in 1989. The decision makes the brothers now eligible for parole. This is confusing about these legal stories because it makes it sound like they're in trouble, but actually this is good news for them. Separate hearings are scheduled for next month. There have been a number of delays, including a request from the prosecutors for more time to review a state parole board risk assessment. They've had these guys in prison for 30 friggin' years. I don't know how much more time they need. Anyway, that report found the brothers pose a moderate risk if released, citing some prison violations, many of them many years old. Prosecutors are against resentencing, saying that the brothers haven't fully accepted responsibility. That's because they claim they were raped and abused. Anyway, the defense pointed to evidence of rehabilitation, and they have a lot of support from multiple family members. While the reduced sentence makes the brothers eligible for parole, that won't happen unless Governor Gavin Newsom approves it. Now, there have been some signals along the way that Governor Newsom is predisposed to saying yes to this, and that there's the polls in the state of California show that most residents of the Golden State want to see them paroled. There was that documentary on TV that pretty much changed the course of this case, I think, right?
Yeah, Netflix, several of these Netflix independent sleuthing of these stories that
true
uncovered,
crime.
These true crime things have kind of reshaped the lives and sentences of several inmates, including these guys.
For sure.
Getting
so
a second
I think
look.
It's not by any means a done deal, but I would say it's likelier than not they're going to get parole approved, right? Wouldn't you say?
I actually hope so, because they're, like I told you, these guys are a little older than me, like less than 10 years older than me, I think. But I knew.
Yeah, they're between your age and my age. They're like exactly in between.
Yeah, and being in LA, I knew people in the Beverly Hills circles that used to murmur about, like, they kind of got a raw deal because of their alleged abuse. But no, those are kind of hush things that polite society doesn't talk about in Beverly Hills. So there were always rumors about this, even in the 90s and early 2000s when I was hanging out over there. Because that was still, for us, that was a local story, the Menendez story, right?
But it was a big national story, for sure.
But it became a big national thing. And at this point, I think if they got their chance on the outside to prove their side of the story, to talk about their side of the story, and to provide evidence, they could be the new faces of what abuse survivorship looks like and what you have to go through sometimes. And I really think they deserve to have a chance to tell the world what happened, and they could be a good, solid voice for a lot of millions of kids that have suffered, and they've continued to suffer even in the wake of doing something horrific. Yes, getting rid of the threat in the worst way possible, but them surviving this after 30 plus years in prison, coming out, if they were able to tell their story, their side of the story, and their family seems to believe it, Ted. And a lot of corrections officers actually wrote letters on their side, like dozens. I heard dozens of corrections officers. So I feel like these guys should get I don't think they got a fair shake.
They didn't. Nobody really bought their story. I mean, basically what happened was, it was complicated, right? Basically, they claimed they were being abused by their father, that the mother basically sat by and let it happen. So she didn't protect them. They went with shotguns, I believe it was, and shot both of the parents while they were watching TV one night. And then what really made them look bad, as if that wasn't bad enough, was then they inherited the money from their parents, and they went on a spending spree. And you're kind of like, it's me time. And
but they were like 18-year-old boys.
Well, so that's exactly right. So, look, obviously one would have hoped the right move would have been to flee. And, especially you're 18, leave, you're adults, go somewhere, live with friends or whatever. They didn't do that. They should have done that. The right move in a situation like that is to leave. You don't use violence unless you have to. But basically, they had been driven crazy by what had allegedly happened to them. Unfortunately, the parents aren't here to defend themselves either. And they might say, hey, it's all bullshit and we can prove it, right? So here we are after the fact, forced to try to assess. But you know what makes it a really easy take for me is, even if we assume that everything the prosecutors initially said about them was true, they have served over 30 years in prison, period. So it's like, after all, and also we know that there's almost no history of people who committed a crime like this, which is a crime of passion, basically. They don't reoffend, right? They kill one person, or there's one incident in this case.
They're not serial killers.
And that's it. Nobody is like, kills someone when they're 18, goes to prison for 34 years, and then gets out and starts killing again. That just doesn't happen. You don't have the same hormones in your system.
The chance of recidivism is totally.
Society is safe. They've served more than enough time. In most countries in Europe, you couldn't serve more than 20 years for any crime, right? You could kill that guy in Holland, is it, who killed like 150 people at the island? You know what I'm talking about, right? He went to it was a political party like island retreat, and like he went and killed like 100. He was a neo-fascist, and he killed like 150 people. They can only keep him for 21 years. Okay, that's it. He killed 150 people. Jeez. So the point is, or something like that, a shit ton of people. So I think after this amount of time, there's nothing to talk about. I don't care what they did. Let them go. They're not going to kill anyone else. It's going to be fine. I would, if I were Governor Newsom, just because I'm preparing my presidential bid. I want to make sure they don't they'll go Willie Horton on me. I would probably be like, I want an ankle bracelet on these fuckers. I want regular check-ins. For a year or two. Yeah. I want regular check-ins. I want parole officer to be up there, like in there, like twice a week. But that's it. I would want a close eye on them. Therapy required, provided by the state, but required, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think they deserve a second look. And like I said, there are their family members who are obviously also their cousins and what have you are all now grown adults.
And they're vested.
They have corroborated.
These are people who they were related to the victims. They loved the victims, presumably. They missed the victims. And if they can see past it, why can't we?
Well, the kids that are now grown up, that are my age and older, say that these boys, there's reason to believe that the boys' stories about abuse, sexual abuse and molestation and beatings, and that the boys, because they were very articulate and went to a fancy school, obviously rich parents, rich kids in Beverly Hills, they wrote letters back then, pen and paper, to their cousins that can serve as contemporaneous notes about moments in their lives, right? And the boys alluded to things happening.
That's true. No, there's definitely contemporaneous evidence of this abuse.
Yeah.
So
I think,
I can't say like as a, like I haven't reviewed the filings and I haven't read all the court filing, all the court depositions, but I would say I'm more than 50% sure it happened. I'm not more than 90% sure it happened. Beyond the preponderance of if this were a civil case, I'd be like, that probably happened. I can't say beyond a shadow of a doubt, beyond a reasonable doubt that this abuse happened. But again, that would be more of an issue if we were at trial right now and the crime had just happened a few months ago. It's been Ted, 30 plus years.
There's also precedent. Remember I forget her name. She's a young Black woman. I mean, now she's a woman. And there's a couple stories like this of younger-ish Black women who at the time were like sex trafficked or whatever, and in their teens, and they ended up killing their captor, right? Their abuser. They served time or whatever, and then they were able to get out. There's at least 2 young Black women whose faces I can think of and names I can't remember. But it was the same thing.
There's been a lot of cases like that. A lot.
They suffered abuse and they killed their captors. And those women are now thankfully free.
Look at the Puffy case going on right now where, Sean Combs is accused basically of psychologically manipulating his girlfriend for the better part of 10 years into
Cassie Ventura,
into doing sex acts that she now says she didn't want to do. You can be like, well, she could have left, right? I mean, she could have just left.
Well, not.
But now, as a society, we understand psychological manipulation a lot better than we used to.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Again, I don't know what happened there. I'd say right now, I still think there's reasonable doubt based on what I've seen so far.
There's some. I don't know. We'll have to let that case play out, but this one with the Menendez it's been hanging out there in the air in Beverly Hills and Los Angeles for 30 years. And I think
this is long overdue. I can't believe they're still in there. I seriously thought they would be out in 5 years.
5 years?
Yeah, because it was like the whole case was so sketchy and they
retried it. It was like double jeopardy almost.
Exactly. And it was all part of the standard Southern California legal bullshit that they do there.
Yes. Well, you know, Ted, you would know.
I do. I was
All
very
right, guys.
surprised, but yeah.
Yeah, very disappointing.
I thought it would be bad, but I didn't. I'm a cynic, so it takes a lot to surprise me. But anyway.
Well, yeah, California. There you go. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us for the first day back of the TED Manila Information Show. We'll be back tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern. Please, if you haven't already done it, hit the like button, the subscribe. That part is free. But if you can upgrade to Rumble Premium, then you'll see all the spicy talk with all the F-bombs. All of them. We'll be back tomorrow. Thank you, guys. Adios, amigos. Bye.